Father's Day 2025. A grandmother packing her final boxes, ready to start fresh with her son and grandchildren. Three little ones giggling in the back seat of a car, completely unaware that in just minutes their world would shatter forever. What should have been a simple conversation between neighbors about trash scattered on a front lawn became a double execution, and the man holding the gun he'd already killed before. This is Teresa Davis and Joseph Jeffries Jr.'s story. Two lives stolen over garbage bags. Two murders committed by a man who should never have been free to walk among families again. If you want the real story behind domestic violence and the failures that let killers roam our neighborhoods, hit that subscribe button. We're trending tragedies, and we tell the stories that matter every single day. Teresa Davis spent 63 years building a life worth celebrating. She wasn't wealthy, wasn't famous, but ask anyone on Maple Street in Henderson, North Carolina, and they'd tell you Teresa was the heart of that community. When neighbors needed someone to watch their kids, they called Teresa. Church potluck needed organizing, Teresa stepped up. Someone sick and needed meals delivered, Teresa was already at their door with a casserole and a warm smile. She'd lived on Maple Street for years in a modest home where she'd raised her family and created the kind of memories that make a house feel like home. But now, at 63, Teresa was ready for something different, ready to spend her golden years surrounded by the people she loved most. Her son, Joseph Jeffries Jr., had made her an offer she couldn't refuse. Move in with him, his longtime partner, and their three beautiful children, all under 6 years old. No more living alone, just pure, unfiltered family time. Joseph wasn't your typical 26-year-old. While other guys his age were focused on themselves, Joseph had already figured out what mattered. His family came first, always. He'd been with his partner since they were teenagers, building something real together. 3 kids later, they'd created a home full of chaos and love, amidst exactly what you'd expect from young parents doing their best to make it work. Those who knew Joseph described him as present, not just physically there, but actually there. School pickup, Joseph. Bedtime stories, Joseph. Middle of the night fever runs to the pharmacy. Joseph showed up every single time. For him, taking care of his mother wasn't even a question, it was just what you do. When Teresa decided to leave Maple Street behind and start fresh, Joseph welcomed her with open arms. Their new home in Lewisburg was only 25 minutes away, but it might as well have been a different world. But across the street from Teresa's soon-to-be former home lived a different kind of family, a family with secrets that neighbors whispered about but never fully understood. Michael Sharon Wright was 41 years old and carried baggage that would have crushed most marriages. His wife knew exactly who she'd married, and somehow she'd chosen to love him anyway. They'd been married since 2018. But here's the thing. Michael spent most of those early years behind bars. Their courtship happened through prison visits and phone calls. When Michael walked out of prison in January 2024, he stepped into a ready-made family of 7. To neighbors who didn't know the full story, Michael looked like any other man trying to rebuild his life. Recently released, working to reconnect with family, adjusting to freedom after years of confinement. Some people saw redemption, others saw a ticking time bomb. The truth was darker than most realized. Michael Sharon Wright wasn't in prison for robbery or drug charges. He'd been locked up for murder, and not just any murder, he'd killed his own family. January 2010, Michael's uncle, 54-year-old Kirk Douglas Wright Sr., went missing. Family members filed reports, organized searches, begged the community to help find him. The search ended in horror. Investigators found Kirk's body in a shallow grave behind an abandoned house. The preliminary autopsy revealed something that chilled everyone involved. Kirk hadn't been shot or stabbed in some heated moment. He'd been suffocated, deliberately, slowly. At 26 years old, Michael Wright had looked his uncle in the eye and watched the life drain out of him. Then he dug a grave and tried to make the man disappear forever. When police finally tracked Michael down, he pled guilty to second-degree murder. 15 years became his sentence. But even in prison, life outside kept moving. He got married in May 2018, still wearing his prison uniform. His bride believed in redemption, believed in second chances. When Michael walked free in January 2024, he joined a blended household of 7 people. From the outside, it looked like redemption in action, a man paying his debt to society and getting his second chance. But redemption stories don't always end the way we want them to. Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. Sometimes the violence that sent someone to prison was never really gone, just waiting for the right moment to surface again. And on Father's Day 2025, that moment came. For weeks leading up to that Father's Day, tension had been building on Maple Street. Teresa had been slowly packing her belongings, preparing for her move to Lewisburg. The process was emotional but exciting. She was closing one chapter to begin another with her grandchildren. Michael Wright, meanwhile, was adjusting to life as a free man with a large family to support. 7 people under one roof meant bills piling up, space running short, and stress that probably felt overwhelming after years of structured prison life. At some point, trash started appearing where it shouldn't. Garbage bags dumped near Teresa's property, debris scattered across areas she was trying to keep clean for her final weeks there. Joseph had been helping his mother prepare for the move, making regular trips to sort through decades of belongings. Each visit, he noticed more trash appearing on or near the property. Friends say Joseph was the type who addressed problems directly rather than letting them fester. He'd grown up believing in honest communication, in handling conflicts like adults, face-to-face conversations, find the problem, discuss the solution, move forward. But Joseph had no way of knowing that the man across the street had already proven he could kill when pushed too far. The June heat was building that Father's Day evening when Joseph loaded up his partner and their 3 young children for what should have been a routine trip to help Grandma pack. The kids were excited. They loved visiting Grandma's house. They arrived around 6:45 p.m., sunlight still warm across Maple Street. The children stayed in the car with their mother while Joseph and Teresa walked around the property, assessing what still needed to be done. That's when they saw it. More trash. Garbage bags that clearly didn't belong there, dumped near areas they'd already cleaned. According to family members, Joseph quickly determined the source, their neighbor across the street, Michael Wright. Joseph made a decision that probably seemed completely reasonable at the time. Walk across the street, have a conversation, ask Wright to stop dumping trash on his mother's property. He legally carried a firearm. Friends described him as protective, especially with his young children nearby. For Joseph, carrying his weapon wasn't about intimidation. It was about being prepared to protect his family. Walking across that street, Joseph had no idea he was approaching a convicted killer, no idea that Michael Wright had already suffocated one family member to death and buried him in a shallow grave. What happened next? Destroyed everything. The conversation started calmly enough. Joseph approaching Wright's front door, asking about the trash situation. Simple request, just stop dumping garbage on his mother's property. But something in Michael Wright activated. Maybe it was the stress of supporting 7 people. Maybe it was the adjustment to freedom after 15 years of prison structure. Maybe it was the same rage that had driven him to kill his uncle years earlier. Within seconds, voices escalated. Joseph trying to remain calm while making his point clear. Wright becoming increasingly agitated by what he perceived as confrontation. And then the unthinkable happened. Michael Wright, 41 years old and already a convicted murderer, gained control of Joseph's legally owned firearm. The first shot echoed across Maple Street at exactly 6:47 p.m. Joseph Jeffries Jr., 26 years old, father of 3, devoted son, collapsed in front of his mother's house. Teresa screamed and instinctively moved toward her fallen son, maternal instinct overriding everything else. Her baby was hurt and she was going to help him. But Michael Wright wasn't finished. More gunshots shattered the evening calm. Teresa Davis, 63 years old, grandmother, community pillar, the woman who'd spent decades caring for others, fell beside her son. The children in the car heard everything, saw everything. Their father and grandmother gunned down in front of them by a neighbor they barely knew existed. Joseph's partner sat frozen in the driver's seat, 3 crying children in the back, processing what had just happened while trying to figure out how to keep her babies safe. The silence that followed the gunshots was deafening. Not peaceful quiet, the kind of silence that comes when the world stops making sense.
Well, now at 4, a battle between neighbors over trash ends with a mother and her son gunned down outside their home.
That's according to Henderson police. And tonight they say they have the shooter in custody. CBS 17's Baron James is covering this story and joins us live near that home, which is on Maple Street. And neighbors you spoke with told you about what they saw, what they heard Sunday night.
Rod and Les, yeah, I spoke to family, I spoke to friends, I spoke to neighbors here who tell me the shootings happened here in this driveway, here in the middle of this street, and in between the victim's house and the suspect's house. Take a look at this. Teresa Davis was shot to death, her family tells me, right in front of her 3 grandchildren and their mom as they sat in a car in front of the 63-year-old grandmother's house. Meanwhile, across the street, here at her neighbor's house, her 26-year-old son, Joseph Jeffries Jr., was shot and killed as well. With his own gun, relatives tell me, and Henderson police say this man, 41-year-old Michael Wright, pulled the trigger. The Granville County Sheriff arrested him this morning around 9 o'clock, charging him with killing a mother and her son.
Over some freaking trash. This woman is gone. This boy is gone over some trash.
Teresa Davis's friends and family also tell me she had recently moved out of this house over to Lewisburg to live with her son, and they had only come back here Sunday to finish clearing out things when they noticed several garbage bags out in the yard, and the son confronted Michael Wright about those bags, which neighbors say set off what turned into a fatal fight on Father's Day, leaving 3 young children now, all under age 6, fatherless. Back out here live, the suspect is locked up in the Granville County Detention Center on no bond as this investigation remains active and ongoing. For now, live in Henderson, Vance County, Barron James, CBS 17 News.
All right, Barron, thank you.
Neighbors emerged from their homes cautiously, some immediately ducking back inside when they realized what they were seeing. 2 bodies in the street, blood pooling on asphalt, children screaming from inside a car parked just feet away. Joseph's partner managed to dial 911, her voice breaking as she tried to explain the chaos to the dispatcher. In the background, investigators would later hear the heartbreaking sound of 3 children crying for their daddy and grandma. Michael Wright had vanished. The man who just committed double murder in broad daylight had disappeared. Police arrived within minutes, weapons drawn, securing a scene that looked like a war zone. Yellow tape stretching across Maple Street, evidence markers dotting the pavement where 2 innocent people had been executed over a trash dispute. Henderson residents received urgent alerts, armed and dangerous suspect on the loose. Stay inside, lock your doors, report any suspicious activity immediately. Henderson police moved quickly, issuing warrants for Michael Sharon Wright on 2 counts of first-degree murder. His photograph appeared on every local news station within hours. The manhunt dominated local media. Wright was last seen driving a white Hyundai Sonata with North Carolina plates. Every law enforcement agency in the region was searching for him. But the search didn't last long. By early the next morning, barely 12 hours after the murders, Michael Wright was located and taken into custody without incident. Wright was processed at the Granville County Detention Center and ordered held without bond. This time, there would be no walking free while awaiting trial. The investigation that followed painted a clear picture of what had happened on Maple Street. Forensics confirmed that Joseph's legally owned firearm had been used in both murders. Witnesses corroborated the timeline. The motive was established through neighbor testimony about the ongoing trash dispute. But investigators also uncovered something that infuriated the community: Michael Wright's extensive criminal history. Not just the uncle's murder from 2010, but a pattern that should have kept him locked up permanently. Public outrage exploded across social media and local news comment sections. How was this man free? How does someone kill a family member, serve 15 years, and get released to kill again? Legal experts explained the harsh reality. Wright had served his sentence for the 2010 murder. The justice system had deemed him rehabilitated, and now 2 more people were dead. District attorneys announced they would seek the maximum penalty possible. With Wright's prior murder conviction, prosecutors had the ammunition they needed to ensure he never threatened another family again. The trial, when it came, was swift and decisive. Wright's guilt was never in question. Too many witnesses, too much physical evidence, too clear a timeline of events. His defense team couldn't argue innocence, so they focused on mitigation. Prison rehabilitation programs, marriage and family responsibilities, the stress of reintegration after 15 years of incarceration. But prosecutor arguments were devastating. This wasn't a man who'd made one terrible mistake and learned from it. This was a serial killer who'd now murdered 2 family members in separate incidents 15 years apart. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. 2 counts of first-degree murder. Michael Sharon Wright was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. This time, there would be no early release, no second chances, no opportunity to destroy another family. Joseph's partner faced the impossible task of raising 3 children alone while helping them process trauma no child should ever experience. Teresa's church organized meal trains and fundraisers. The community rallied around the surviving family members, but nothing could bring back the woman who'd been their anchor or the young father who'd been their hero. The house on Maple Street, where Teresa had lived for years, eventually sold to new owners. Life moved on the way it always does, even when it feels impossible. But for those who knew Teresa and Joseph, the questions remained: how many warning signs had been missed? How many other Michael Wrights are living in our neighborhoods right now? Teresa Davis and Joseph Jeffries Jr. represent something larger than individual tragedy. They represent the cost of a justice system that sometimes prioritizes rehabilitation over public safety. They represent families destroyed by violence that could have been prevented. Their deaths sparked conversations about parole policies, about monitoring released violent offenders, about the balance between second chances and community protection. Teresa Davis spent 63 years building a life of service and love. She raised children, supported her community, and was preparing to spend her golden years spoiling grandchildren who adored her. Joseph Jeffries Jr. was 26 years old with everything to live for, 3 beautiful children who saw him as their hero, a partner who'd loved him since they were teenagers, a future full of family dinners and school plays and bedtime stories. Both of them were executed over a trash dispute by a man who'd already proven he could kill. Both of them died because the system believed in redemption more than it believed in prevention. Their legacy isn't just tragedy, it's a warning. Some people forfeit their right to walk among us when they choose to take innocent lives. Some crimes are too heinous to forgive, regardless of time served or rehabilitation programs completed. Michael Sharon Wright will spend the rest of his life in prison, where he probably should have remained after killing his uncle in 2010. But that knowledge brings no comfort to 3 children who grew up without their father, or to a community that learned too late about the killer living among them. If you found this story important, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're Trending Tragedies, and we tell the stories that matter, the ones that reveal failures in our justice system, the ones that honor victims who deserved better, the ones that ask the hard questions about public safety and second chances. We upload new content every single day because these stories deserve to be heard. The victims deserve to be remembered. And maybe, just maybe, telling these stories can prevent the next tragedy from happening. Teresa Davis and Joseph Jeffries Jr. mattered. Their lives weren't disposable. And the hardest question of all remains: how many more families will be destroyed before we learn who we're really letting back into our communities? Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.